You drive the vision, strategy, execution for how developers engage with Amazon's next generation AI products. And the latest exciting AI product you're promoting is something called Nova Act. So tell us about Nova Act.
Yes. So Nova Act is a service that we just recently launched. We had a research preview going on since March last year and are super excited that this past December at our AWS reInvent conference, we launched this as a GA service. Nova Act helps you to build UI automation tasks at scale very reliably and helps you to really kind of start prototyping and putting it in production really fast. So you can get started, which I love as a developer, really fast in a playground experience, and then, iterate on it, debug it, and once you're ready, push it onto the AWS side and run it there reliably and safely at scale.
Really cool. And it's free to get started, right?
Absolutely. So one of the key things, again, I'm excited as a developer, is we want to make it really easy for you out there to get started, right? Like in this industry, we know the speed to delivery, speed to shipping is kind of the mode. So you don't want to spend too much time spending up the right environments and infrastructure and integrations. You really just want to validate your ideas, right? A lot of startups, like you just want to go build the ideas you have, validate them really quick, iterate on them. So you can get started really quick in our playground experience to especially do that. And then you iterate there, and then you can move into, the next step. For example, if you want to customize more in IDE environments. So we really want to keep also the surface area really kind of, where you're doing your day-to-day jobs as a developer.
Really interesting. Would you be able to walk us through the typical user journey through a Nova Act experience? Obviously, I'll have a link to Nova Act in the show notes for this episode so people can go there and describe to them what it would be like to us to experience it as we go there for the first time and we're playing around in the playground all the way through to deploying.
Absolutely. So you can go to nova.amazon.com/act, and then there's the playground experience. There's also links to all the dev tooling we're offering, IDE extensions, SDK downloads. But really kind of the first step is you go into the playground free of charge. You don't need any AWS account or anything. So you just go in there, you provide a website that's, for example, you're going to, let's say, a booking website or a specific like an event, maybe sign up site, right? Conference season is starting soon here in the Bay Area and everywhere. So you just put in the website, and then in natural language, you can decide and put in the actions to take, right? Let's say I want to sign up to an upcoming meetup, right? So maybe I put in the Luma website, and I'm going to say, hey, search for a specific meetup. Maybe I want to join, an AI performance meetup. I look for that. And then you can also put the actions in to fill out, like click the RSVP, click the join it, and have it fill out the form for you. And on the same playground, you see an embedded UI, the browser environment. So you don't have to set that up any manual way. So you can see it right there. So you can observe how Nova Act, how the agent is going to that website. It's performing your actions. You see also the reasoning traces, so what it is doing, which is exciting, especially important for developers to be able, to debug, to troubleshoot, to really see what's happening there. And you can tweak it if it's not getting it at the first time, so you can optimize your instructions, see it, and then once this is performing well to what you want to achieve, you can then download the script. So in the background, it's writing a Python script that captures all of those steps. So you have the ready script. You're using natural language, it converts it to the code for you, and then we have IDE extensions, for example, or just an SDK. You get that into your preferred IDE of choice, you import that script, and then you're basically back in your coding world as a developer, right? So you can customize it, you can tweak it in there, and also the IDE extension has this embedded live preview. So, a lot of times when we're building those automation workflows, you have like a separate window popping up that shows you the browser. And we got a lot of developer feedback that that's just a little bit too much, right? We want to stay in the flow when we're building something. So we included that in your IDE so you can really stay in there, have a unified window with all the troubleshooting, the debugging, the traces, so you can keep really close eye, develop, customize. And from the IDE, you can then, if you want to, also connect to your AWS account if you have one, and for example, deploy it there to run it in production.
Nice. So that sounds like a really easy way for somebody to be experimenting with developing an agent, because you can go to nova.amazon.com/act and then be able to use your natural language to describe what you'd like your agent to do. Watch it do that task and then get the Python code, use it in whatever environment you're comfortable writing your code in. And then that allows you to easily scale up whatever you're doing. But it sounded like you mentioned also being able to productionize on AWS with this solution.
Right. So a core kind of motivation for us, talking to a lot of customers, talking to developers out there, we've seen so many flashy demos, right? Like you go to any meetup, especially here in the Bay Area, but I assume in other parts of the world in a similar way. And everyone has a flashy demo, right? And all the kind of fun stuff that agents can do. But what we observed and the feedback we received as well from customers is that on average, those agents work maybe 60% of the time. And to be honest, an agent that is reliable 60% is 0% useful, right? Especially if you want to productionize this, you need to really have reliability that you can trust those workflows and that agent to complete that one task. So this was the core motivation for us, kind of really the P0, to make sure Nova Act can reliably 90% and more deliver on those workflow executions.
Awesome. So, how do you do that? How do you get that kind of confidence? How do you go from a 60% reliability to better than that? What kinds of tooling do you have in Nova Act to ensure that?
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit how we train Nova Act, right? Which is exciting. At least I find it super exciting. So in the past, when we trained, AI models and things, it's a lot about imitation learning, right? You collect data and you show it that data. Now, as we're moving from kind of the chat-based conversational models that we all know and work really well into this space where we're building agents that need to take an action, that doesn't work anymore, right? Because the agent is not just predicting a next word, next token anymore. The agent needs to predict the next action to take. So what we're doing is we're building out those reinforcement learning based web gyms, as we're calling them. We have actually one in the playground. You can actually play around and observe one. And those web gyms are replicas of very typical UIs. So like maybe a form filling UI, a shopping workflow, etc. And we're letting the agent train in those web gyms. So imagine hundreds of those gyms, like typical UI design elements there, typical tasks to do, and then give the agent like thousands of tasks, right? And they basically self-play in there. So this is similar, like in the past, how AI learned to play chess, how it learned to play Go. It's really kind of a trial and error approach. So the agent goes in there, tries to do that form filling. It might fail at a couple of times, right? But it self-corrects. It does it again and it learns a better way to achieve the task. So this way, the agent understands to reason, through this UI and understands how to accomplish the task and helps it also to generalize well, right? Because UIs change. So that's super important. If you're building that agent, yes, you have a specific site. Maybe you're, in those gyms you're training it on. But then again, you wanted to generalize if the website changes, if the checkout button moves, if the sign-in button moves somewhere else, if it's using different icons, because a lot of UIs are really designed for us humans, right, to navigate. So, and for us, this is a simple task. If you think about maybe you go and write an email, and depending on which email program you're using, which application, sometimes the button says draft or new or create, right? Or it's just a little pen icon to create a new email. For us humans, we learned that. We understand that. It's not a hard task for us. But if you're sending an agent to that environment, to that UI, the agent needs to be able to generalize and understand and reason in a similar way, even if, some buttons in some tools says draft, the other one says create. So this is really exciting. So you're training the models, and Nova Act is trained like this on those web gyms to then really kind of be able to generalize and navigate those web pages, even in real life as they're changing the structure and then the look.